Hello there. This is Steve Bellow. You're listening and watching Guitar Tales with Dave Cohen.
And welcome to Guitar Tales. That was the great Steve Bellow giving us a little shout out there. Thank you, Steve, so much. And we want to also thank our pretty new at this point sponsor, Charles Larita of Mischief Studios. He was a friend of the show for years. He was a guest on season 1. And what Charles has done is something super cool. He's opened up Mischief Studios, which is over in Pennington, New Jersey. That's right near Princeton, right in the center of the state. And I know his studio really well. Incredibly easy to get to from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, Parkway, Turnpike, Route 1, all of that. And within Mischief Studios, it's really one-stop shopping. So what you've got there is, and you see it right on your screen now, first of all, Charles is an incredibly gifted musician, and he surrounds himself with many other gifted musicians. So there's lessons there. If your guitar breaks, if you want to get your guitar reconditioned, like my 1938 back there that I'm someday going to bring to him, my old acoustic, guitar repairs. If you want to record, he has a recording studio there. So it really is a special place. And also he sells instruments. So swing by Mischief Studios. They're a friend of the show, and we're thrilled that they're sponsoring us. And in conjunction with Riverview Studios, this is now our second show at the Noise Network Studios. I want to thank my friend of 40 plus years, Scott Guitarist Stengel, for doing the amazing work he's done to set up Noise Network. And finally, we have in our metaphoric and virtual waiting room, the Tone King. And for those of you who haven't heard of the Tone King, his name is Lewis. He is a progenitor. He is one of the very first social media influencers in the space of guitar gear, guitar instruments, reviewing guitars, setting up his own really, really amazing website and YouTube page with over 100,000 followers, which is just an incredible accomplishment. And within those pages on the YouTube page is an incredible treasure trove of information and entertainment. And I took such a deep dive. It was really enjoyable going on your page. You could hear me. You're not on screen yet, but I know you could hear me so far, I think. You're nodding, so I could see you off on the side screen in our studio. I love the combination of sort of a professorial approach, but really a lot of fun too, and a boatload of personality. But what I like even more is the fact that you are a trusted, authoritative source. If I want to buy a microphone, if I want to buy a pickup, a guitar, an amplifier, software, I can search your site and get an honest, meaningful, thorough, and yet entertaining review. So with that introduction, I'd love to welcome the Tone King to Guitar Tales.
All right. Thank you. That was a very kind introduction.
It's legit. There we go. That's right. We wanted to get that. Let's do it together.
Start with one of those bad boys right there.
That's right. I love that on all your interviews. Start with the bad boy. I love that. Right. So, we've been working with you for a while to get you on the show. We're really appreciative that you're here.
And flattered that you asked. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. What you've accomplished, in my view and in Scott's view and in 100,000 other people's views, is really amazing. You've created, it seems to me, almost like a community. Mm-hmm. You have all these people, but then they come to you. And one of the things I like that you do is that you'll be, I see you're looking at your computer and you'll recognize certain people. Hey, Guitar Assist, how you doing? Things like that. And I would imagine it really fosters an environment of inclusion there.
Yeah, I've been at this for a while, and I think one of the more fulfilling parts of it is it really is a community, right? A lot of familiar faces, and it kind of gives the channel purpose, right? It's a hangout. It's literally a hangout where we get to talk about gear. I get to answer questions. I get to see, I'd say the familiar faces, but let's say the familiar names. And
Right.
it's just nice. It kind of brings it to life for me, and I think for them as well.
And here we are. We did not have on Guitar Tales shows like this before COVID.
Hmm.
We were only, we were in the Riverview studios, and it would take a while to set them up. So we might tape every 2 or 3 months, or maybe a month. I get the sense, in a weird way, you were ahead of the curve because you were doing this in this style, I suspect, long before COVID.
Yeah, it's interesting. Unlike a lot of people that hop on the platform to, you know, kind of jump on the bandwagon, so to speak,
Exactly.
this was all an accident for me. This was like not a business plan. It wasn't for free gear. It wasn't for free money. It was just out of passion. I
Right.
enjoyed this stuff. And in fact, before YouTube even had a streaming service, I used to stream to live stream, and I would tell people on YouTube, "Hey, here's the link to live stream. Come over there."
Wow.
So this is like pre-YouTube streaming.
That's
This is when
amazing.
this is when YouTube was cat videos. This
And
was before there was such a thing as a YouTuber.
wow.
So
And
it's been
before
a
the
while.
word, so you were an influencer before there were influencers,
Perhaps, yeah,
before
yeah.
the moniker was there anyway.
And it was all just an accident. If you remember 15 plus years ago, if you wanted to hear a piece of gear, you'd listen to the wave clips, the wave files on a website.
You're
And when you
right.
and when YouTube came out, it was like, oh, cool. Like I don't need to index it because I could just make a little video clip and see what it is and hear what it is. And what I didn't realize when I was putting those videos up is, oh, wow, people are starting to comment. People
Right.
are starting to, like it, which, it kind of became self-fulfilling.
That's really, it's interesting. There's so many of us out there who
Hmm.
have a passion for gears, for stuff.
Hmm.
You get these conversations going. I had a buddy of mine just did a Facebook post about some amplifier, and I mentioned Heathkit.
Hmm.
And just among my little friend group, it just exploded. Oh my God, Heathkit. I remember that. I never built a Heathkit. I bought a few used Heathkits.
Hmm.
Or I remember the old Bogan open air tube amps, like the stereo ones. And for some reason, the nerds of us just absolutely love that kind of stuff. And I love that you have that passion for it. And you're making me really curious. So
Hmm.
before you started doing this, what was your past life?
Well, I was always, I think, like a lot of the people that watch me, just a guitar nut, right? Loved
Right,
buying guitars, selling guitars, modding guitars, um, and not just guitars, everything around it, right? That's the
right,
kind of the core, but pedals, effects, that type of thing. And I think that's why the community is as tight knit as it is because we share a lot of the same the same interests, the same
right.
curiosities, right? We have the same questions, and in fact, a lot of the content is driven by those that tune in that you know give me the ideas, the suggestions. In fact, once upon a time, my audio was really horrible, and people would say, "Oh, do this or do that," and I actually learned, I think, as much from my community as hopefully they've learned from me. So
Well,
it's definitely been a two-way street, not a one-way street.
yeah, we have the same thing here. Part of the impetus for Scott's hard work and revamping our remote shows to get them a more professional look, to yell
Mhm.
at me so I could talk closer to my microphone, uh,
Right.
and get those deeper tones in there. Was learning from our guests. One of our guests, I think from season 2, we have a dear friend, Todd Yasui, who's a Hollywood producer. So
Hmm.
as soon as we got this software, Scott and I were on the phone, so to speak, like in this style with Todd, just having a legit Hollywood producer give us ideas about how to make the show content and appearance better. Yeah, I love the two-way street of it.
Yeah, I think when people genuinely dig what you're doing, they want to weigh in, they want to help, right?
Right.
And if you enjoy doing what you're doing, you listen to the viewers. It's no different than any other business, right? If you want to be successful, you need to, pay attention to the feedback, pay attention to the comments. I believe that if people didn't care, they wouldn't bother. But I think they do care and they do bother, and it's it's in your interest, no matter what you do, is to pay attention to that stuff.
Well, another interesting thing, and I'm listening to the way you talk right now,
Okay.
and in a good way, in a really good way,
Hmm.
and what I see tonight, and what I've seen in your videos, is that you don't have an act. In other words, your show just seems to me to be pure organic. In other words, or authentic is probably a better word. Um, I would guess that your personality when we stop chatting now is exactly the same. You know,
That's what I've been told.
and I think that's a great thing. I have a friend of mine I used to work with years ago. Wonderful. I'm a lawyer by day.
Hmm.
Um, Wonderful trial lawyer. And one of the things I like about him, and I think one of the keys to his success in the courtroom, is that he's the exact same guy when he's in front of a jury as when you have lunch with him, when you're having a cup of coffee, and I'm sure when he goes home to his family also.
Hmm.
And I think for you, maybe part of your sort of secret sauce in your success is that, like I just hear it in all your videos. You're just you. I don't hear any pretense there. It just seems like you're just a guy who's being himself, giving your honest appraisals of whatever you're reviewing at the time.
Yeah, I think we all experiment. Even in your own journey, you'll probably experiment. You try to make the funny video, the parody video.
Yeah, yeah,
You experiment a little bit, but when all else fails, you just wind up going back to being who you are, right?
right, right.
Which seems to be the most consistent and seems to work.
Yeah, and I guess in this really crowded field that you're like the cream who's risen to the top of it. Um, Maybe people could smell it out. Um, you know,
Yeah, perhaps. I think here's something people don't see or really can't see is I think when you are yourself, it makes for better relationships, just
right,
having that consistency. So, I know a lot of people that work at a lot of the companies, and, you had mentioned the word integrity before. Uh, I kind of put that at the forefront of what I do. And I think it just helps me just have better relationships with companies that allow me to cover, more things, create more content. Because as you know, you can't do everything in a vacuum. You need to depend on the people around you to, get some of these off the ground. So, yeah, I think just being yourself is probably not a bad approach.
right. And I didn't even think of that before. As I'm thinking about what I would want to inquire about your professional career, I'm thinking about you in front of the camera.
Hmm.
But under your business model, there's a boatload going on that's not in front of the camera
That's
because
right.
because and this is something I know that you know much more about than I do. But in terms of how you monetize, your avocation,
Hmm.
I would imagine there, views pay for certain things because I've seen, I've watched your videos. There's a lot of advertising, but then you also, as you said, you have relationships with all of these manufacturers and companies, and then people who might be guests on your show.
Hmm.
So that's a whole different piece of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes on when you're not on camera. I just did a show this past Friday with, I think it was 19 pedals on a board. So there was a lot of back and forth with the company. There's me trying to understand, since I wasn't familiar with the brand, is
Right.
this something I want to show? Sometimes something shows up that I think will be great, and I wind up sending it back because it wasn't, right. There's a lot of time that's involved. And then there's the setup. Is it working right? Is everything working? And, you could easily spend, I'll just give you an average number, 8 hours or maybe
Okay.
10 hours, let's say a day in hours, preparing for a 1 hour video, right? And
Wow.
that's on the low side. I actually have some buddies of mine that do this that'll take a day, a full day, like 24 hours to create a video. When you factor in all the back and forth, the correspondence, the cut, the edit, et cetera, et cetera. It gets real involved. And,
Well,
and that's actually one of the things you're always asking yourself is how do you how do you make the workflow more efficient? You know?
Yeah, that's true because there are apparently only 24 hours in a day, I've heard.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things we had Anthony Parker on,
Hmm.
who's wonderful, and he puts out really great videos on how to play and how to or appreciation of certain really famous classical guitar riffs.
Hmm.
But the continual pressure for him as part of his business to pump out content is enormous. And I would imagine that's the same kind of, maybe not. He's putting out two or three a day because
True.
his are short. His are maybe 45 seconds or so. So he's in that. He's in the realm of reels, TikTok, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you're more almost in the, dare I say, like the Joe Rogan side of things in terms
Right.
of you're giving people really lengthy, meaty content, and they could pick out chunks. But in whatever the format is, I would imagine that you're under a lot of professional pressure to put out good quality but frequent content, I would think.
Yeah. I used to do something 30, it was called 30 pedals in 30 days. I've retired it a number of years now. And that used to be 60 videos in 30 days. Because
Wow.
I would do the unboxing and the story as one video and then the demo in another video. And, it comes down to workflow. Sometimes you have to take the scale out and say, does, the input match the output, right?
Right.
And it's like everything else. You put it on a graph and you make a determination of, do I continue with this, or do I park it and do something else that maybe is the audience likes a little bit better. What's funny about something like that was it was a tremendous amount of work, as you could imagine.
Right.
But there were other things I was able to spend my time on that was more widely received. So sometimes you got to make the tough decisions because time is your biggest obstacle. It's the one thing you can't get back, and you have to use it wisely.
You know, it's true. And then I'm thinking about, a lot of your videos are an hour long.
Hmm.
And I think on some level, your success bucks the conventional wisdom, in that the trend these days is short attention span theater, as we used to call it, however long ago that was on PIX, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but I suspect it harkens back to something you said earlier tonight, which is that your fan base is populated by folks who are enormously devoted to gear and are like you are and like I am, just obsessed with an appreciation for gear. So
Hmm.
you might have a different market, I suppose, than hair products or something like that.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, and I do the same thing. I like to watch the short videos. Instagram's a lot like TikTok now,
Yeah.
and they're easy to consume.
Right.
It's it's good content that you could consume 50 pieces of content in a matter of minutes, especially
That's
you just keep
crazy.
scrolling through.
Yeah.
But what I ask myself is, what's your takeaway from that?
I
I
know.
see that more as entertainment, and I think I'm probably more in the informational or educational space
Yeah, I
versus the
agree.
entertainment space. That would be good.
Yeah.
It's hey, you're parked in a parking lot waiting for your kids to get out of school. TikTok
Right.
is great.
Yeah.
But when you want to learn how to change the carburetor on your, gas powered equipment, I don't know how effective TikTok is.
Right. Yeah,
So
I
I
don't.
think, you
Yeah,
know,
I'm not enriched if I spend an hour, which sadly I've done, watching reels or what have you. And,
yeah,
and the worst thing is that hour. I mean, it's horrible because that hour goes by in what you thought was 10 minutes.
that's right.
Um, but
And,
I don't.
and
I,
try to challenge yourself and ask you, what did you remember of what you watched? And it's
right.
pretty much nothing.
It's 100% nothing,
Yeah,
and we don't exit the experience enriched on any level.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
And
it's a.
meanwhile, we continue to
I
consume it.
know. Well, it's like I eat ice cream sometimes. I don't think there's a lot of nutritional value to it. I guess I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, it's funny. I always talk about icing. If you're really really hungry, you could eat a big ass pile. Oops, see, I cursed on the show. But you could eat a big pile of icing, and you'll temporarily feel a little bit full. It'll give
Yep.
you briefly the sensation of having consumed something, but ultimately, within a half hour, you have none of the benefit of having consumed anything that's helped you.
Yeah.
You know, but it feels kind of good in your mouth. It doesn't feel good in your tummy. You know, once you process it.
That's a whole psychology 101. I remember in college, they had the picture of the kid with the ice cream and the eyes are lit up.
Right.
The before, and then the after. The kid is all sad and depressed, feeling miserable because it ate the bowl of ice cream, right?
Right. Yeah. And the sugar rush has gone away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what that does. And but it really is a testament to what you're doing. It's one of the things, we're doing a little bit of both. Our shows are meaty.
Mhm.
We'll go, anywhere from a half hour to an hour.
Mhm.
In the studio, our rule was it ends when it ends. And now we're kind of tamping it down a little bit from there. But then when Scott's been doing, and I suspect you're doing some of that too, he'll chunk it out and we'll find those golden moments, in the show.
I think that's smart. We were just having a conversation about time, and I don't know about you or anyone watching this, but I know I have a problem that there's never enough time in the day.
Yeah.
And I say that because there is a lot of content I'd love to watch, interviews with people, and there are some channels, people who I even know that I trust and respect,
Right.
but their videos are 5 hours. I
Right.
don't have 5 hours to watch that as much as I'd want to. So I think, part of the business decision is, hey, how can I get the most of this in an hour so more
Yeah.
people can consume it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's nice. It's nice to rap with someone for 5 hours, but I always
Yeah.
think of the viewer. Okay, I'm going to assume nobody wants to see my face for 5 straight hours.
Right.
So
Right.
how do you sum it up? And that's some of your problem, and my problem is, hey, how do I get the most of this in a 60-minute time frame? And I think if you could do that, that's a good goal to have.
Yeah. And that's what we've been doing. And I can't tell you how many shows we've had where I say I can go another 3 hours, but I won't.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because, our show is really just two folks having a nice chat about guitars, guitar gear, music, things like that. And in real life, though, especially, um, I always have a beverage.
Nice.
But in real life, those conversations usually are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
But that's you're right. We have to think about, in a non-self-indulgent way, the viewer and the listener.
Right. Yeah, you want to give them a snapshot, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I can't watch a 3-hour Hollywood blockbuster.
Right. Which actually has a plot.
Which has a plot and directors and
Yeah.
actors. And
Right.
so I just take that as a litmus test of sorts and say, yeah, I don't know if I could watch any video for 3 hours on any topic. Right.
Right. So when you do your work, right, I would imagine there are times when you get horrible gear and you get amazing gear, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sort of pivoting a little bit here.
Yeah, sure.
So let's talk about, so what happens when you get really, really bad gear and let's say you have a relationship with the manufacturer. In your line of work, how do you deal with that?
That's a great question.
Wait, before you answer, it
Yeah.
was Scott's. He wrote to me. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, I can't take credit.
I have said publicly that if I don't like it, I won't review it. And what's interesting is if I didn't like it and reviewed it, I'd probably get more clicks because people always, the negative outweighs the positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But the way I look at it is, again, it comes back to that common denominator of time.
Yeah.
If I only have X amount of time, I'm going to talk about something I enjoy, not something I don't.
Perfect.
The one exception to that is if I do make a video of something and it doesn't hold the test of time, I feel a moral obligation to revisit that and say, hey guys, I know I told you this was great, but this is what happened to me. So kind of buyer beware, right?
All right. Yeah.
Because remember, a lot of these videos are out there on perpetuity, and it's fascinating how I'll get a comment on a video that's 10 years old and they're like, how does it feel when you pull the volume back? It's like, I have no idea. I mean, that video
Right.
is 10 years old. But when people are searching for things, they're not looking at the date you released the video.
That makes sense.
So sometimes, just because people do go through the back catalog, if I reviewed something and praised something, and there was a reason why it didn't hold up, I'll revisit that. And usually I'll do that at the end of the year, kind of at, the best and the worst gear of the year. But
Oh, that makes sense.
if there's something I outright don't like, I won't review it. I'll give you an example. I had
Yeah.
a pedal company, who I won't name, that sent out every one of them was noisy. I'm like, I can't review this. And they said, oh, okay, well, send them back. And I did. And that was the end of that. There was another company, an amplifier company, and the fuses. Oh, no, they were the amplifiers with DOA. And I give this amplifier company a lot of credit, because they got on the phone with me. They did a video chat. We learned that one of the fuses had popped. And
Right.
this was one of the amps where you could change tubes. And
Okay.
I think it was the milliamp. They learned that one of the tubes that you could swap in or out was, I don't know what the technical word is. Let's say the amperage was too high.
Okay.
So they learned something from that whole experience. But they got on the phone, they listened, they sent out overnighted some fuses, and that's okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times, believe it or not, you wind up becoming a consultant of sort for some brands that care about that feedback, that care about, hey, you unearthed something that we didn't. We want to learn from that. Tell us what you did and how you did it. And I look at that as really kind of a community service, because, hey, better me than, some
Right.
kid that, spends $500-600 on something, and they go to swap a tube and the thing craps out on them. Right. So not everything works 100%, but sometimes I'll weigh the company's response to that. Right. How,
Right.
how willing are they to, try to understand, try to rectify it, that type of thing. So it all depends. And again, this is the stuff nobody sees.
Right. And that's also part of the time suck. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, because, so under that example, you get the amplifier, you plug it in, right? I guess I'll review it. Does it work? You pick up
Hmm.
the phone or you shoot out an email. Maybe it's
Hmm.
a half hour. Oh, well, we'll call you back later this afternoon. Well, I'm going to be out this afternoon. I'll talk to you later. And then you're sitting there troubleshooting with them, and you've lost 4, 5, 6 hours. And the content that you were planning on creating on March 17th doesn't happen at all yet.
Yep. That happens.
Yeah,
It happens. And, and
but
and I would say, for the most part, a lot of companies are more understanding than not.
right,
Um, I say consulting, but it wasn't a job. It was more like I gave them feedback,
right,
feedback that I didn't sign up to give them. It was
right,
like, hey, you want to check this out? Sure. Hey, what's going on here? And that snowballs, like you said, into the 5 hour back and forth and video calls. And can you test this? Some not all the time, but sometimes I get roped into that. And I'd have to say, for the most part, a lot of the companies would, really understand that. Maybe a gift basket winds up at your house for, hey, I know you spent a lot of time on this.
right.
Have some fruit on us. Like, that happens.
And the cool thing is that 3 years from now, maybe they remember how great you were to them,
Yeah.
and they come up with a great product, and they said, we want to be a sponsor on your show or something like that.
Yeah,
Or
I think good people are good people, and when someone sees you putting in the time, you
right,
get the thank you, you get the, hey, if you're going to be at NAMM, I want to buy you a drink. You get you get the thank you in some way, shape, or form, and you know what? That makes it all even worth it that much more.
right. Hey, and it's funny you mentioned them. Scott also just wrote it on our little back screen here.
Hmm.
Um, Most of our viewers know what NAM is.
Hmm.
Not everyone does. So talk about what that event is, and then how it interplays with your business.
NAMM is an interesting thing for me. I think NAMM helped me grow this channel. I Listen, I don't want to pat myself on the back, so don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to do that. But I think I might have been one of the first YouTube people to actually cover NAMM.
Wow.
And the good news is, somebody could probably go verify that. Just go back to, I think, maybe 2011. And usually it was companies that were putting their content up. And I had gotten an invite and I went. I brought a camera. I brought my own internet. And I think I was uploading about 70 videos per NAMM.
Wow.
What always fascinated me about so NAMM has helped build my brand. It gave me an opportunity to shake hands, build relationships, meet the people at the other end of the email line, right?
Right.
But NAMM for me has always been a little bit of an anomaly. Now more so than ever before, and I'll explain to you what I mean. NAMM is an industry trade show. NAMM was a pre-internet entity that allowed dealers to buy from builders, right?
Okay.
It was North American Music Merchants, I think is what it stands for. But basically, stores would go to NAMM to buy from manufacturers. That's what the intended purpose is. It's a trade show.
Right.
It's a non-public trade show.
Right.
Well,
it's an invite-only type event.
Or
was.
It's not an invite only. You could sign up and pay the $200 or whatever it is now, $200 NAMM fee, and they would vet to see, are you a company? Are you a brick and mortar company? Are you an online store? Like, they wanted to understand who you are.
Okay.
And I know that because I was one of the early folks that actually did that. I had a website. I signed up as media. Now it's like, it's everything but that. In fact, I know a lot of stores. I talk to a lot of dealers, and they're like, I don't go, or I don't order product at NAMM. I could just go on my dealer portal. And order from there. I don't need to go to the show. So I think it's really become more of like a comic con than a trade show.
Gotcha.
So it's morphed, but I think
it's
NAMM,
networking now, right?
It's networking. And what's interesting is NAMM is a non-for-profit thing.
Okay.
But it just feels, it does, I don't think Comic-Con is non-for-profit.
Right.
And I think the intended purpose of NAMM has changed. I just wonder if, they change things on their side, because
it's like government, right?
Yeah, it's definitely morphed,
Yeah, it becomes its own self-perpetuating entity, I guess.
Yeah, but NAMM is fun. If you've never been to NAMM, it's a lot of fun. You're going to see a lot of faces. There's, even outside of NAMM, when you go to the hotels, there's always live music, food trucks. NAMM is a lot of fun.
Yeah, Scott and I had talked about going. I haven't been, but
it's fun.
I would. When and where is the next one?
They changed everything up because of COVID. I don't know where they landed that plane, but it used to be Winter NAMM was in Anaheim and Summer NAMM was in Nashville.
Gotcha.
I think they consolidated down to one show, and I want to say, if memory serves me correctly, now they're doing the Summer NAMM in Anaheim, which is brutal, because while it's Southern California and it's a beautiful place, you're competing with Disneyland.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So Summer NAMM in Nashville was wonderful. In fact, I always liked Summer NAMM better than Winter NAMM. It was a little cooler, a little more hangout-ish, smaller, more quality over quantity. Winter NAMM was all quantity.
And Anaheim doesn't really have a lot, whereas Nashville does.
Yeah, Nashville's a lot of fun.
I haven't been there in years, but yeah, Nashville's a cool town.
Oh, it's awesome. They're starting to call it Nash Vegas because there's so much to do, right? It's exciting. It's exciting to be. But Winter NAMM I'm sorry. Now, again, I'm pretty sure this is correct. They narrowed it down to one NAMM in the summer in Anaheim. And it's not just you're competing with Disneyland. The airline rates go up, the hotel rates go up, the availability of the hotel. Like, it's a problem.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's a big problem. And that's not just my opinion. I've spoken to dozens of people that have all said the same thing. It's costing me 3 times as more to go. I can't get the hotel I want. Everything's booked. Everything's more money. So that's where I believe the plane landed for me.
So now here's the question of the hour on that before we put a pin in this topic.
Yep.
Are they still filling the room? so to speak.
Well, I don't think they've been filling the room for a long time.
Okay. Then
In
they have to
fact,
respond to that. Right.
yeah, I think they wound up merging two shows. One was an electronic show with the NAMM show, just to
Oh, all right.
make the numbers look a little different than they were. That's my understanding. I don't know that to be fact, but news like that circulates pretty quickly. I think NAMM in general has always been, because listen, the intended purpose as is obsolete.
Right, right, because of internet buying and things like that.
Absolutely. And when you're
Yeah.
a company and you're being asked to stroke a check for 50K or 100K, you have to ask yourself, do I need to do that for dealers or consumers to buy my product?
Right. I mean, people buy. I mean, one of your things was, can I buy safely, or what was it? Can I buy a guitar off the internet? I saw one of
Uh,
your
yeah,
videos.
yeah, I did a lot
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
how to buy, smart.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and I think more and more. I mean, that guitar I got from Scott's page, Guitar
Yep.
Embassy, that great Ivy. But
Hmm.
I got it sight unseen, loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would think for, if you're, especially if you're, say, like a boutique pedal or guitar company, and they're saying, all right, well, a booth off to the side over here for 3 days straight will cost you, like you said, 50,000.
No,
Better
that's
look.
probably that's probably small. Those little booths. A lot of times they have like booth sharing where they take
Okay.
a lot of smaller. But like the big booths, they have to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars
Wow.
for the bigger companies. But the smaller ones, I'd probably say, $5,000. I knew someone who went to Summer NAMM. I'll leave their company name out, but they
Right.
had like a 10-foot little square, and they were
Right.
about $10,000. They
So
spent
that,
about 10 grand. That was a lot of money,
yeah,
and
and yeah, that
and the
doesn't come easily for a small company.
No, and what's crazy is they're friends now. We became friends, and I asked them. I said, "So, how much did you sell at NAMM?" And they said, "We didn't sell anything." And they said, "That's why we want to work with you." I'm like, "Right." So you give them 10 grand,
Right, right,
get
right.
nothing, and then I'm hooking you up with a solid over here. It's like something's a little off,
I know.
you
Yeah.
know?
That is, but you're right. It certainly to me seems obsolete, the way it's handled. Um, One other topic. I'm going to pivot right now.
Sure.
The video with you and Phil X. Talk about that.
Well, there was a few. I first met Phil X. I'm really bad with dates, but we did a little NAMM jam together in a booth, and I can't even remember. This is when he was working for Fretted Americana. Maybe it was the Fretted Americana booth. So we
Okay.
met there, and then we met again at GitCon. Yeah, GitCon, which
What's
was in
that?
GitCon was in Germany.
Okay.
It was a guitar event put together by the owners of Framus Warwick, and I went there for a few years. I was invited, and
Right.
yeah, I got to jam with Phil X on stage, which was a ton of fun. I have to
Wow.
tell you, talk about somebody who is the same on stage or off stage. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, full of, I mean, just a barrel of energy, a
Oh my
barrel of
God.
positive energy. He's an amazing person. Not to mention, he's an amazing guitar player.
It's crazy the way he plays guitar. I was watching him. We had Matt O'Ree on our show a couple of years ago, who was with
Mhm.
him on stage. He attacks the strings from so far away and hits them with laser-like precision.
Yeah,
Like his style, he's punching the guitar and hitting it perfectly. It's very impressive.
he's just in a there's definitely an aura around Phil X.
Yeah.
And I've met a lot of musicians, and it's amazing how, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people are different on camera than they
Right.
are off camera. He is just There's so much positive energy, and he's the same person on camera, off camera. It's like he's the guy you want to hang out with. He's the guy
That's
you want to
wonderful.
have a beer with. Just really and humble. Oh my God, just humble as pie.
Those are the best.
They are.
Yeah, because there are, it's funny. I won't name the name, although I'm tempted to. Through a weird connection, I ended up spending New Year's with one of the late night TV personalities
Mhm.
who is off the charts talented. and was very nice to me
Hmm.
because he wrongly thought I mattered in his little world, and I didn't. But was just a complete jerk, just an
Right.
absolute jerk. And every time I see him on TV, I think, all right, you're off the charts talented, but no positive energy
Hmm.
coming out of your mouth. You're just a miserable person. So when you get those people with the positive energy, uh, I think that's really that person's a keeper.
I have to tell you, in all the years I've been doing this, I don't know if I could, on one hand, count the bad experiences. You know,
Well,
they're for me, they're few and far between. There's been a few, um, but I got to tell you, and I put a few in quotes because I think what we're doing here, the love of music, the love of guitars, it's a tight knit community.
right,
And we're all kind of in this boat together. And I think that comes out. People that work for guitar companies love working for guitar companies.
right.
So whether you're working for a company or you're a consumer of that company or your media covering that company, there's really genuine passion and interest in this. Because listen, we have choices. We don't. I don't have to play the guitar. I don't have to buy a guitar. They don't have to work there, right?
That's true.
But
Yeah.
we make conscious choices. So I've had a couple of bumps across the road, but they've been few and far between. Now, with that said, let's say this is every day. Yeah, a couple down here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a lot really just above the average. Just some of the events I've been to have been phenomenal. Meeting people like Phil X's have been phenomenal. The real highlights. There's a lot of them. I have a lot of highlights that I'm really proud of.
It's really special. Give me an example of a super highlight.
You brought it up, Phil X. Phil X was a highlight. That was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Being invited to Germany 3 times.
Wow.
That was amazing. Sweetwater invited me out before I was the first YouTube person that they invited out. Now they're inviting a lot of people. They're like, oh,
Okay.
there's value to this.
Right. Yeah. You're
I
the
was the
progenitor,
first.
as I
I
said.
was the
Yeah.
first.
That's
Uh,
great. That's
and I
huge.
could say that confidently because the beautiful thing about YouTube is it's all time stamped.
Right.
And
Right.
they took me to a ball game, box seats at a ball game.
Wow.
Took me out to dinner. We had a ball game. Gave me a nice tour. Had coffee, hanging out with the guys. It was really nice.
And you know what it is? It's validation and recognition for number one, the good work you're doing, but number two, your position in this community.
Yeah,
Like and that's got to feel good.
it
Like
does.
I always talk about my day job, and anytime someone asks, as a lawyer, and anytime somebody asks me to give a seminar to help teach other lawyers how to do what I do,
Hmm.
I'm off the charts flattered.
Hmm.
Because it's a little bit of recognition that someone's appreciating that I work hard at my craft. I
Right.
like to help people and things like that. So that's fabulous.
I think I
Yeah,
think
go on.
human nature. People want to help people, right?
I think you're right.
I think that's a human nature thing of a person with a good moral compass. We want to help each other.
Yeah,
And when you're put in that position, whether it be a lawyer helping another lawyer or me helping another musician, that's the stuff that motivates us and drives us and makes us want to do, go a little further, a little harder, every day type of thing. That's how I
and
see it anyway.
I love that attitude. And I think the fact that by your personality and by just what the fact that you're a guitar player, you pulled yourself into an area with like-minded people. There aren't too many jerks who love guitar gear. Like
I have to
yeah,
agree with that. I have to
yeah,
agree with that.
yeah.
It's
So
funny. I was talking to my daughter who likes music. She's 18. And
okay,
we were talking about mosh pits. So
okay,
I'm dating myself to
yeah,
the
right,
trash
right, right,
nowadays. And at a glance, you see people slamming into each other.
right,
But what you don't see is if somebody's down, they all pick them up.
right, right,
And that's the beautiful thing. You want to be crazy and have fun. You could do that, but as soon as somebody's down, and I've seen bands stop, guys, stop, like stop the music, get that guy off the ground, help
right,
that
right.
guy.
That's
So
beautiful.
and I think that's kind of the, we're in the mosh pit of the guitar.
That's a great metaphor. So let me do this. We're hovering at about 45 minutes right now, which is sort of the sweet spot of our show. Let me hit you with one little tidbit that maybe you can give some of our viewers. And this
Sure.
is a Scott question.
Okay.
What's the most important item in the chain when it comes to tone? So you start with your finger, right? You maybe have a pick, maybe you're using your finger. You've got a speaker on the other end. Probably doesn't lend itself to an easy answer, but give us some thoughts as we close out about either the most important or some of the most important items between pick and speaker.
Well, someone told me, I can't claim it's myself, but they said it's not the wand, it's the magician.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
And when you think about it, by the way, you don't have to zoom in on me. I actually like seeing you, so we could chat. So when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Right.
And I'm going to get to your answer, but let me explain something.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
One of the problems we all have, I have other YouTube people, I've had this conversation. Every time I demo an amp or a pedal or a guitar, we always get it sounds the same.
Right.
There's a reason why it sounds the same, because it's the magician, not the wand.
Right.
If you took Eddie Van Halen, you took Stevie Ray Vaughan, and they're still going to sound like Eddie Van Halen. They're still going to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I think the character starts with the musician. We were talking about Phil X. I've seen Phil X play on 10 different brands of guitars through 10 different brands of amps, and he's phenomenal. It sounds great.
Right.
So I think it starts with what you have inside that makes you you. That's the most important thing.
Right. So
Next.
now we're going to move to second most important. Right.
So I just wanted to clarify the question.
That's a great caveat to your answer. Yeah, because it makes sense. Yeah.
That's a tough one. I could easily say the guitar.
Right.
I could just as easily argue. You're a lawyer. You could appreciate. I could argue both sides of that, right? I don't know who wins. A jury may have to decide.
Right.
I think the guitar is very important because, you're connected to it, right? It's like the guitar is the tires to a car.
Right.
That is what you are that's where the rubber meets the road.
Right. My hands are on the guitar. Your hands are on the guitar,
which means, when you think about what's the most important thing, I probably have to say the guitar, because the guitar is going to determine the tone, right? Are you using humbuckers? Are you using single coils? Are you using a set neck, a bolt on, the type of wood? Is it more bright? Is it more dark?
Right.
So when you determine that type of tire that you want to put on your car, that's going to really define, plus your comfort. Are you comfortable?
Right. Is it heavy?
Am
I straining under it? Yeah.
So I would probably say, being that you are touching that instrument, that is probably the most important thing.
That makes perfect sense.
Now, with that said, if you want to play Metallica and you have a Fender Twin Reverb, that's not going to work. So I could argue that the amp is really important.
That's true. Yeah, right.
That's
fantastic.
I could take any guitar, but I need the right amp to play the right
song. That's very true. Yeah.
I could take a Strat. I could take a hollow body. I don't care. But I need a dual rectifier if I want to sound like Metallica, right?
That's right.
It depends on, for tone, I could probably argue that the amp is equally important, because that's, when you think about it, that's what's shaping the tone.
Right, because you've got a signal. We've done a whole episode on pickups.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you've got a reverse motor, basically, which is what the pickup is, I learned.
Yeah.
But then what are you doing with that signal? And then once you manipulate the signal, then what are you going to use to move the air? And how fast and how large a volume of air will you be pushing, or are you going straight into the soundboard and all that crazy stuff?
what's the most important item in the chain when it comes to tone? That's like asking, what's more important, tires or gasoline?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, you kind of need both.
Right. That's funny. But what's great? In asking the question, we got that great answer out of you. That was fantastic. So I really want to thank you. And it is true. I could do 3 more hours, but that would be self-indulgent of me. But I would love to.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being on with you. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And as I know we have the banner, it's been going under the show all the time. If you go on, I will say this, if you go on Google or any of your search engines, The Tone King, it's that easy and takes us right to your website. And then you very conveniently have all the videos, you have your gear there. So it's very user-friendly. But I want to thank you so much for joining us on Guitar Tales. That's right.
One of those bad boys. Well, I'm gonna leave everyone off with one of those bad boys. Right.
One of those bad. I got 2 of them.
There you go.
Have a great night, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, this is Dave Cohen, host of Guitar Tales, and
Scott Guitar Mrs. Dangle.
So we put together this show every week for you guys, or at least every other week. We want you to do 2 things for us, which would be good for everyone. If you could subscribe on our YouTube channel, that would be great. And
share. Please share the videos around with your friends. Let them know Guitar Tales is out there. It's not just about guitar players. We have a lot to offer.
Thank you.